Many people don't realize that, definitely not the general public, but even some realtors don't realize that the National Association of Realtors is actually the largest lobbying group in America.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of money. Okay. And what do we do when we also want to uncover the truth of something is, follow the money. So historically, the United States has a track record of busting large unions, right? And protecting competition and that sort of thing. So NAR, being the biggest lobbying group, is kind of akin to a union. And so I think what has just happened, and we just need to put it in perspective, is NAR just got union busted.
Interesting.
Okay. But let's think about it a little more. What does NAR lobby for, right? Lobbies for individual homeownership rights. Again, general public doesn't know this. Even some realtors don't. I was very active with the policy and governance and advocacy groups here in Austin with the Board of Realtors. So I have some, perspective on that. I have seen NAR and the state groups and local groups lobby for things like preventing rent control or, preventing a sales tax on real estate transactions, which would have been an additional tax on our commissions. So it's a very, very powerful lobbying group. So if it's a powerful lobbying group advocating for individual homeownership, who would want to bust that up?
Tell us.
Do you have thoughts? I have thoughts.
I've got thoughts. And I think from different perspectives, you and I are going to align on what's going on here.
I just think what we're seeing is, corporations have determined that real estate is a great business model for them. And you can't be advocating for individual homeownerships and corporate homeownership. So corporations, following the money, were on board with helping bust NAR up.
So let's I think that we probably skipped a step here for the audience on so the NAR settlement making it harder for maybe individual people to get into homes.
I think it definitely will.
Right. Okay. So that's the missing piece that I want to drill into on why.
I think that's unfortunate.
Okay. So on what specific elements of the settlement do you think are going to make it more difficult for, agents? Is it the commission split? Is it the way the commission is going to be financed? Is it, what elements of that do you think are going to, affect the brokerages and the agents?
Well, I think, there's a lot of hypothetical still.
Absolutely.
What we are seeing is buyers will, agents will have to have a buyer representation agreement signed before they can show someone a home. So you're going to get a very big range of skill that agents have in being able to communicate their value. And, typically, the buyer's rep agreement has come with a certain level of compensation. I think it's fair to say that certain level of compensation will be all over the place based on, in part, the skill level of the agent being able to articulate their value to that buyer. I think about my kids, right? I have 22-year-old son and daughter-in-law. And they are probably going to be among the type of buyer who will be not interested in paying out of pocket because they will be so busy saving for their down payment.
Right.
So a realtor that isn't really able to articulate their value and charge very much for buyer representation, well, that's also going to be a buyer's agent who isn't able to advocate very clearly for their client.
Right.
So those clients are going to be served at a deficit. The clients who need to be advocated for the most.
Right, exactly. Because there's this market dynamic of if the price has got to come down, the service level has got to come down.
Right. I think that will happen. Yep. And unfortunately, there's also, the other trend going on is just, a lot of kids that age, sorry, I call them kids. A lot of young people don't see themselves as homeowners. And they just don't see how they would ever save that money. And they're going to see, now I've got to pay a buyer's agent commission. That's just another nail in the coffin of me being able to become a homeowner.
It's one more barrier.
Right. And so we're going to see, I see it happening already. I think it's going to increase. There's a whole percentage of the population that just won't even try to be homeowners. They're satisfied as renters. They can just check off the dream of ownership. I don't have to worry about the dream of homeownership. I can focus on other things. And these corporate landowners are going to be very happy to be corporate landlords and prevent these young people from ever becoming homeowners. Like
institutions becoming large landowners. I think that's dangerous. right? Because I do think so much of the American dream has been wrapped up in your home being your primary mechanism for accumulating wealth. And if we remove that, then all of a sudden other portions of the economy need to be rewired so that people have the capacity to just retire. Like let alone own a home, right? Because that is nice, right? But retiring is what's going to happen.
Well, even to that point, yes, I agree with that. But even more, it's not just the dream of homeownership from a financial end game. It's also, homeowners are more likely to vote. Homeowners are more likely to be engaged in their communities. And if we become a nation of renters, who benefits from the populace not voting and not being engaged in their communities? It's not great. And when the media publishes articles and they hold up how real estate is done in other countries, I encourage people to go look at the homeownership rate in some of those other countries.
That structure is very, very different. Yeah, I've got friends in Germany, and it is much more like it's very different. Yeah. Just leave it there.
And I don't know that it's. I mean, a lot of the media came out and saying pointing out that it's desirable to change to that, and I would just say I'm not sure it is.
Are you repositioning any components of your business already to try and deal with this? Or are you more just like, hey, this isn't totally going to affect me because my clients aren't necessarily these people? How are you bringing this from like macro to micro?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do, or first thing that I did was really educate myself and try to get a foundation under me. And because it's still proposed, we don't really know where it's going to end up. But anytime there's a major news story about your industry and you are actively talking with people who that might affect, I think it's important to be able to have those conversations. So I know people don't like the word scripts, but I really spent a lot of time as I read articles and listened to some people on podcasts. I had a Google Doc open. And when I heard something that made sense to me, I put it in the Google Doc. And then I kind of came back and massaged some of that. I have about a dozen sellers under contract right now in different phases of like just about to list or listing in 2 weeks, kind of my spring listings. And so that was interesting because they had all signed agreements at different phases. Then this news broke, and I thought, well, are they all going to call me and want to renegotiate the commissions or raise
have any of them wanted to?
No, I've had one out of the dozen reach out and say, hey, does this impact me at all? And we had a conversation about it. But no, it's been fairly non-issue. My best friend, who's a director at Dell and, very, very smart, financially savvy, I talked to her about 10 days after the news broke. She hadn't even heard about it. So I think sometimes we in our own industry I think we have to over-prepare, but we can make things a bigger deal to our clients than it actually is. And we have to be on guard for that. So we have to be ready for the tough conversations, but they may not occur.
Well, you have to imagine that if people inside the real estate industry are confused about what's happening, most of the calls that I've got from people, because my network is broadly like technology people, right? Marketing and developers and that kind of thing at technology companies. And I get these calls that are like, what is happening?
You okay?
You okay? No, we're going to be fine. But which is the first thing that I'd say to the audience, we're going to be fine. Us as an industry are going to be fine. But if they're confused, right? And they're sort of like the normal media consumer, then Well, I think the media really got it wrong on most of the articles I read about the proposed settlement in the sense that, that there's this sense that the removing the 6% or uncoupling the buyer's commission from the listing commission is going to result in a reduced home price. I don't understand that. I don't think that will happen. I think what will happen is some sellers may decide to pay a lesser buyer commission than they typically might have because this news has made them feel powerful in that. Have you, just as an aside, have you heard anyone give voice to that? That the sellers are going to do that? Yeah. No, in fact, my sellers have been just stay the course. Right. People got to get paid. Right. But part of that is positioning and languaging by me. I think that's possible. There will be realtors who think that's going to be their angle to take the listing is to tell the seller, you don't have to pay them. So I mean, so rather than there's anything is possible in this industry. So rather than articulating a clear value statement, just be like, we're going to make this cheaper by trying to take out the other side of the transaction. There are realtors now who are listing at, a percentage rate I would not personally run my business at. And I compete against them and, I do fine. So there's always going to be a chance, right? Right. So
but let's just take that scenario, which I don't think will be widespread, but I think it will happen. There will be people that are kind of encouraging the seller to, not pay the buyer's agent, pay me, but stick it to them. That seller is not then going to say, oh, well, I'm saving $24,000 in the buyer's agent commission, reduce my house, reduce the price by that much. No, that seller is going to keep the money. So my point is, the media that says this is going to reduce home prices, they are wrong. Like, the market handles what a home is priced at. It's not the commission rate. So I think that's just a gross, misgeneralization that we have to be prepared to educate the public on.
Right. This is an interesting point that I don't know if I've thought specifically about, but my initial reaction to this is, one, just watching the last batch of interest rate changes, and then how, interestingly, like, slowly, I thought that home prices reacted to that. So the Fed was very intentionally trying to cool the housing market, right? But they actually are playing a much longer term game than I think that maybe we think they are. Like, our attention span is a little bit shorter than theirs, right? So they've got to like torture the market a little bit longer than we would like to get the prices to change, right? So for anyone that thinks that this is going to be like internalized by the market and things are going to shift on the dime, like, no, not at all. Like, could in 5 years prices be a little bit lower because the business models underneath between the buyer and seller have adjusted a little bit? Maybe, but I think you'd have a hard time teasing out what is the change in underlying value versus the change in the compensation structure.
Correct. Because, remember, in most markets, we're still fighting inventory battles.
Right.
So, there's so many factors.
The supply side is going to govern that way more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. Real Geeks is the all-in-one real estate sales and marketing technology platform that is designed to make real estate professionals more efficient. New for 2024, Real Geeks has 4 packages. The base package, which is the same platform that everyone's used to, that starts at $299, as well as 3 packages that include leads. So if you're looking to upgrade your technology and get leads, we've got something for everyone. All of the packages include SEO Fast Track, which is Real Geeks' AI-enabled SEO tool, which builds out long-tail, programmatically driven AI content for your listing pages. Data coming off this has been great in terms of generating long-tail traffic for our customers. You want to check this out? Head over to realgeeks.com and tell them that you saw us on Keeping It Real.